Hello.
Hello, Michael. We hear you. Morris here, chair of ENR.
Hi, Morris. How are you?
Not too bad. Struggling away. Struggling away.
Not as much as a struggle to find that unmute button was, but anyway, I
It
didn't
takes a bit of
exactly
getting
think it
used
was.
to. It takes a bit of getting used to,
Yeah,
so it does.
yeah. I didn't think it was completely thick, but then for a moment there, I was thinking, yeah, I need to go back to school.
Chair, I think there's quite a few members on, but I don't think everyone's there yet. I don't know if you want to leave it a minute or two yet.
I will. We'll just leave it a couple of minutes or a minute or so yet until we see Karen, and then we'll make a start.
No problem.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Hi, Michael. How's things?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
It's good.
Michael's going to tell us today about cheap gas and stuff like that, Karen, to heat us.
Well, it's been quite
It
cold.
was cheap. It was cheap for a few years, but it's bounced. Get it now, you know.
I hope that's not a hot air conversation.
Derek, were you looking to come in on their chair's business, were you?
I can do, but not at this minute, Morris.
No, just I was talking to your colleague, Darren Guy.
Yes, there was a quick issue that.
You're happy enough, then? You're happy enough?
To come in onto that, yeah.
You want to come in on it? That's okay.
Thanks, Morris.
Morris, how long would you like me to speak for? Because I don't want to take up too much of your people's time. It's just to say that we're out there, you know. What's your sort of thoughts on timing?
Probably, what do you think yourself? About 10 minutes?
10 or 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Sometimes people just try to go through the presentation and then if there's technical questions or clarifications, then Paul can sometimes take those, but or else I can try myself, but Paul's the techie guy, you know, so.
Right. What we can do is we can take the presentation and then we will take members, then any questions. Look, it's up to yourself, or did you say it was Paul?
Yes,
can answer them in.
Do you hear me, Morris?
Who's that?
It's Paul Stanfield. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Paul. Yes,
okay.
Yes, loud and clear.
Morris, I'd just like to try and share this screen before we all start. Can I try and do that? Can somebody make me a host? Paul Stanfield?
Paul, if you can just wait for a few minutes because we need to
no problem.
First.
I just want to make sure it works, Karen. That's it.
Yeah, I presume you have sent your presentations through to committee services, and I think then our
all right, okay.
We have it, Karen.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Great. Thank you.
Karen, I think we'll just make a start now. Just welcome everyone to the meeting and welcome Michael Scott and Paul Stanfield from Firmus Energy. Karen, would you do the summons of the meeting and read out the one about the online?
Absolutely, Chair, no problem. Thank you, members. And just before I start, can everybody please put their mics on to mute if they're not speaking? Because there's quite a lot of feedback coming back. I think just keep it on mute until you're actually speaking. Thank you very much. Okay, so to all members of Environment and Regeneration Committee, you're hereby summoned to attend the monthly meeting of Environment and Regeneration Committee to be held on Wednesday the 13th of January at 4 p.m. and I'll take the roll call. Councillor John Boyle. I see John's there. Councillor Boyle.
Yeah, I'm here, Karen. If you can hear me.
Yeah. Councillor Tina Burke.
Apologies, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sean Carr. I've seen Sean there. Yeah.
Here, Karen.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Morris Devaney.
Here.
Councillor Angela Dobbins. Angela, are you here?
Apologies, Karen.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Durkin. Councillor Mary Durkin, yeah, you're here. Councillor Stephen Edwards.
Here, Karen.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Fleming. I think I see Paul. Yeah. Councillor Christopher Jackson.
Draw, Karen.
Thank you. Alderman Hussey is here.
Hi. Yep.
Councillor Eamon McCann. Don't know if I've seen Eamon. I don't see him on yet, but okay. Alderman Ryan McCready.
Yes, Karen, I'm here.
Yeah. Councillor Rory McHugh.
Sure, Karen, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Alderman David Gibson.
Here.
Very much first. And Chair of the statement for remote meetings, I'd like to remind everyone who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. Broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on whilst speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in the meeting, you are consenting to be filmed and to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the privacy notice may be found on Council website. Thank you very much, Chair.
Any apologies? Just record. Anyone has any apologies, just put them in the chat box. And likewise, any declarations of interest can be put in the chat box as well, and the note takers and officers can see the conflicts of interest. We move on now to our presentation from Firmus Gas by Michael Scott and Paul Stanfield. So, Michael, it's over to you now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Paul, are we going to share our presentation?
Paul, you should be able to actually share it by at the top of your screen if you press the share button and then share content. You should be able to share your content. And our IT team can actually do that if you are not able to do it.
Can Paul hear us, do you think?
Paul, you're on mute at the minute. Michael, would you like our IT
Morris,
team
yeah.
share?
Well, I don't want to hold up your meeting here. Will I fire on with the presentation? I'm sure we can send
Sorry,
the member.
Should be okay now. That's me back now. Should be okay. Does everybody see that?
We can't
no.
But if we could ask our IT people to try and share it, if it's okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm just getting a connecting sign up on my computer.
Right. Will I just conscious of time? Will I shoot on, Morris, if you're okay with that?
Can IT, Karen, not get it sorted?
I think Paul is able to do it, and then IT will if they can't.
It may be coming through now, Karen.
Must be coming down past the castle there first before it gets to us.
It says it's having a problem sharing it, so I just keep trying here.
IT will do it, Paul, because they've said that they can share it, so they will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There we are.
You are.
Thank you. Sorry about that, folks.
No problem. Thank you, Paul. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for affording us the time this afternoon. We'll not hold people back in council business. My name is Michael Scott, like I say, MD with Firmus Energy. I'm joined by Paul Stanfield, our Sales, Market and Customer Service Director, as well this afternoon. So we're just here to talk briefly about the natural gas industry in Northern Ireland and how we're planning to transition to net zero carbon. That's an overall plan of how we aim to transition, take forward what we have done in the past and transition to net zero longer term as well. A bit about Firmus Energy just in the next slide. So I'm not going to read all of this out, but we have a business we started about 15 years ago from 0 customers, 0 offices, 0 staff, and we've built on that foundation from 2005, whenever our business was established, and we've just passed about 1,700 kilometres of gas mains. We build out about 100 kilometres a year. Actually, we're accelerating some of our build programme at the moment due to increased demand for our network and connections to our network. And the business was established, it's sort of known as the 10 towns business, or the license is a 10 towns. So there's neither 10 towns nor just towns across the areas. So we have cities, towns and villages throughout Northern Ireland. I'm going to show some of the maps. So that our business is headquartered in Antrim. We have 2 offices in Antrim, just behind Junction 1, Kilbegs Business Park. The network transitions to connects on to the gas transmission network at Carrickfergus and brings gas up to Derry, Londonderry, and then again spurs off around Antrim and brings gas down to Armagh and then also down to Newry and the Warren Point areas too. Apologies, I'm from Belfast, so apologies for the accent. But we're based in Antrim. People would say, are we a fly in, fly out type of business? So all our staff, bar if we have people on maternity leave or anything like that, all our staff fully contracted. We've about 120 staff in the business now. We've about 120 to about 130 actually staff working with Kier, our contractors, and then Paul and his team and sales directorate work along with a wide range of installer networks and other service providers to roll out the gas network and the installations in homes and businesses. So for our core market, which is, like I say, outside Greater Belfast, right across our network area, we have about 50,000 customers, and we also have about 50,000 customers being supplied with gas in Greater Belfast. So essentially, we rent space in Belfast off Phoenix and supply those customers. Outside Belfast, we both own our own network and then also supply customers across that network area as well. So we're unique in that we're the only utility in Northern Ireland from a gas perspective that has a distribution, essentially a gas pipelines business. So we dig holes and lay gas mains, and a supply business arm in arm with each other as well. Proud to say that we have gold status for investors and people with all our staff, and we take the environmental credentials very seriously and have been awarded gold status in the business and communities benchmarking survey as well. So that's just a little bit of background just about us, where we are now in Northern Ireland, just on the next slide. As if by magic. Yep, there it is. Headline in this slide really is saying, okay, so we've got 3 network areas across Northern Ireland. You've got Phoenix to the east of the province, Mid and south of the province, and then out to the northwest, we have ourselves, our own network area, and then in the last couple of years, we've had SDN, Scotia Gas Networks, build out their networks. People would say, why would you have 3 network areas for gas businesses across Northern Ireland? I couldn't answer that. It's just how they're awarded. They're essentially, Phoenix was awarded the license for Belfast. We bid for and secured the license for our network area. And similarly, we bid for the business in the west of the province, and we didn't secure that, and SDN did. So there's now 3 network areas across Northern Ireland. And we work closely, so we're not in competition with either SDN or Phoenix, so we work along collaboratively with them. And the benefits of natural gas we have seen by the uptake in demand over the last number of years as well. And overall, as an industry, both in the west of the province, across ourselves, in the northwest, and right down to the south of the province, then, and then also to the Greater Belfast area, we've had it as an industry over £1 billion worth of investment to date, and an ongoing increasing commitment to keep spending and investing in our network and rolling out the gas networks. So by the end of 2022, so in a couple of years' time, we'll have, of the 800,000 plus properties in Northern Ireland, with 550,000 properties will have access. They will not all be connected to natural gas. That's why there's an ongoing programme of investment in switching to natural gas. But they will have access, as in there will be a gas pipe outside the property, be it an industrial commercial unit or a small business or a residential property as well. And the gas networks, we're working along with industry and with experts in the field of hydrogen and biomethane to consider where we can take the opportunity and transition the gas that transports through our network. So there's methane in our network now. It's about 50% cleaner than oil, but it's not zero carbon. So we need to transition to zero carbon. And one of the ways of doing that is by transitioning to biomethane, by essentially taking injection anaerobic digestion gases for one, or hydrogen gases, and increasing the rollout of the gas network to then transition the gas that flows through. So there'll be no change to people whenever they use gas. It'll just be that the gas will be slightly, the molecular composition of the gas that they will use will be different. And we have a significant part to play in the investment. And we're working along with the renewables industry, we're working along with NIE networks, and we're working along with the rest of the gas industry to make sure that we're working collaboratively and part of the solution for the energy framework. So this is all emanating really from the strategic energy framework. It's being developed now by the Department for the Economy, and we're an integral part in that working group as well. Maurice, I'm conscious of your time, so I'm going to speed up here a bit here. I know I'm sort of deliberating a bit. So the next slide then, please. So how are we going to transition to net zero? Really what we're talking about, we're going to be using our polyethylene. So we have a plastic system. So you'll see along the roads, whenever we're digging up the roads, our yellow plastic pipes along the sides of the roads. So that pipe goes into the ground. It can use hydrogen or transport hydrogen or biomethane or anaerobic digestion type gases in the future. Phoenix have been doing it since 1996. We've been doing it since 2005, and SDN have been doing it out to the west. And our network, that £1 billion investment that we talked about as an industry, that network is compatible with use with hydrogen, so taking zero carbon fuels and gases in the future. On the next slide, we'll just talk about some of the environmental benefits. So clearly, there's an environmental benefits for now from switching from oil or other fuels to natural gas. So there's 48% less CO2 emissions essentially by doing the immediate switch. If all the properties who could switch did the switch, there would be deriving a saving of about 1.1 million tonnes of CO2 being saved, and about 1.7 million tonnes of CO2 being saved if all of those properties were to switch. But we're at about 1.1 million tonnes per year being saved, and that's the equivalent of taking 750,000 cars off the road. So the green credentials of natural gas are very, very strong. It's one of the reasons why people convert from oil or LPG to natural gas. But we have more work to do to actually transition to net zero, and we're working along with industry to do that, and we have the solution in our network. Okay, next slide. So there's different phases on the next slide. We'll just touch on these very quickly. Phase one, maximise the households who can convert from their existing heating to natural gas straight away. And that will, like I say, just shy of 50% carbon saving from doing that. And if all those properties, for the further properties on top of the properties that we already have, did that transition, that would be 1.7 million tonnes of CO2 each year that would be saved. So we're encouraging government, we're encouraging the Department for the Economy in setting out the strategic energy framework to optimise the use of natural gas. You get an immediate 50% saving straight away, and then you can build on that infrastructure, that £1 billion worth of infrastructure. To be honest, customers are paying for that infrastructure. So the more customers that use it, that ultimately helps to reduce costs for future customers in the future as well. The second phase then, Paul, on the next slide, please. Ongoing decarbonisation, as I've touched on, biomethane, anaerobic digestion, using other gases. Paul Stanfield and I, our sales director, have been to see this in operation in GB, where we've seen anaerobic digestion in place in the south of England as well. So it's being done elsewhere, and it can be done in Northern Ireland. We just need the arrangements, the regulatory regime, and the conditions to be in place. And I think we're seeing a favourable response both from the Department for the Economy and the Utility Regulator and the Consumer Council for Northern Ireland whenever we talk about these future transitions. And as well as that, on the next slide, then we'll talk about just the use of hydrogen and the use of hydrogen going as a zero carbon fuels. We're doing test work along with others and some academic research, and we plan to undertake a number of trials in the next year or two to roll out opportunities to see where we can take hydrogen or anaerobic digestion in the future. But we have a core business to continue to grow. We're not finished building out our network. We'll spend this year about £18 million in investment in our natural gas network, and that is planned over the next number of years, and we agree those costs with the Utility Regulator's Office as well. So it's not as if we're doing this on our own, but we have a long-term future to move from natural gas, methane, to other gases as well, and we're working with industry to do that. And then the third phase, just on the next slide. We've talked about compressed natural gas. So I think we're all clear electrification is the way we're going for cars. Paul will probably jump in here now because he has an electric car and he loves to ask the question how many people are using electric. But there's a great opportunity for Northern Ireland and for Ireland generally, and for the UK, British Isles generally, to use HGVs. So there's elsewhere in Europe where HGVs, heavy trucks and buses, are using natural gas. So yes, they can be used with hydrogen, but they can also be used with natural gas. And I've seen it myself where you can hold a hanky over the exhaust pipe of an HGV truck using natural gas. And if you take it away, all you're going to end up with is water vapour as well. So there's a role to be played between ourselves and the electric industry and looking at an opportunity in the hydrogen industry and see about taking forward trucks and cleaning up the environment that way as well. Just on the next slide. In summary, really, where we are, delivering net zero is what we need to do. We need to get houses and businesses off an unregulated fuel, which is essentially kerosene, aviation fuel in Northern Ireland, transition over to natural gas, and then facilitate the opportunity to use our gas networks for other uses going forward, but also optimise the number of properties who can connect to the gas network, and then use that for transport fuels as well. Next slide then is just a bit of an overview. So in the Derry and Strabane areas where we're about 15,000 customers. We've invested over £30 million to date, and you can see our CO2 what we've taken from the local atmosphere as well. Continue to do an awful lot of work in the area. So I know SDN have been working in the Strabane area. Like I say, we work with SDN as well. We have distinct areas, but in the greater Derry area, right across, we have had significant success. As Paul, as the sales director, would tell you, our biggest uptake has been in the Derry area. So thanks to everyone who's been encouraging the uptake of natural gas as well. And I think there was just maybe one last slide, which just highlights some of the customers. Some of the customers, like I say, we've over 100,000 customers across Northern Ireland. 50,000 of those are across the different towns and cities, villages we service, and about 50,000 in Belfast. So that's just some. So apologies if I haven't reflected some people maybe in the audience, some of their businesses. But thanks to everyone for your time, and both Paul and I are happy to answer any of your questions, and that's the rest of the team. Everyone's smiling a lot in that picture, so I must be doing something right. Well, I think I'm the only one that's smiling actually in it whenever I look at it actually. Thanks, Maurice, and thanks to everyone. We're happy to take any questions. Try to be on time as much as possible there, Maurice.
Does Paul want to say anything before we throw anything out to the members? Or is Paul okay to wait? No, I think it is all right to wait. The first speaker indicated to speak is Councillor Jackson.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Can do, Christopher, yeah.
You're very welcome, Michael and Paul. On behalf of Sinn Féin, I just want to welcome both of you and thank you for your presentation. And I suppose
thank you, Christopher.
We welcome the progress of Firmus in terms of providing the connections. They are continuing to offer, or they carry out the work. They offer the connections. For more and more people to be given a chance to connect the natural gas right across the north. And I know it was, when reading the presentation prior to the meeting today, I was encouraged to see the environmental benefits of natural gas, and I suppose in relation to us all meeting or reducing our carbon emissions. The conversion to natural gas is going to be essential to doing that, and Firmus is going to have a key role to play here, particularly here in the northwest. But there's a few queries that I've got in relation to the presentation. See the figures that we were given in relation to the 550 properties being given the choice or having access to natural gas by the end of 2022. How are we in relation to how achievable is that, or is that something that that Firmus can guarantee will be delivered on, or will that be Brexit or COVID or any other challenges? And there's a few other questions just in relation to when it's been well demonstrated in relation to the environmental benefits of natural gas, but in relation, whenever businesses and households are making the decision, another key consideration is the cost of natural gas and the security of supply. So in relation to the conversion from methane to biomethane, and I know you've highlighted the potential use of anaerobic digesters. I would just question in relation to would customers would customers expect an increase in price if whilst that conversion took place, and in relation to security of supply, could that be guaranteed? And I know you've highlighted that the executive are exploring the rollout of anaerobic digesters, but we have had I suppose a history of renewable heating schemes here in the north, and I suppose it's something that we're wary of, and we want to make sure that this is done right. So I just in relation to the price, and the security of supply. Is there any guarantees that can be given by Firmus? Thank you, Chair.
Michael, we'll take a number of speakers and then you can answer them in a row so you can. So the next speaker is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair and Paul. I suppose where I'm sitting, I might be better speaking to SGN. Is there somebody with a mic there, Morris?
Yeah.
Is it still on? Thanks. I might be better speaking to SGN, and I don't know if you can answer, questions relative to my own area that would emanate from that. Couple of issues, I suppose. Which properties are actually going to be in position to access your network? At the bottom of my garden, the potential for your system coming to supply me might be slightly limited. So is there a scattergram or a scatter map available showing those areas where businesses and private properties will have access to the network? And I suppose what I'm concerned about is highlighting those areas that economically you will just ignore, I suppose. Is the system integrated? And I suspect the answer to this is yes. Is the system integrated between the three license holders, Phoenix, yourselves, and SGN? Is there any cross-border linkage? And I'm mindful of the gas fields off the west coast of the Republic of Ireland that I know people had looked at before, and the possibility of connection through a grid system into Northern Ireland. So is there any connection there or cooperation there? With regard to biomethane, have you had any initial discussions with local providers? Because I, in the past, have been contacted by folk who have their anaerobic provision, the digester provision, and are producing biomethane, and I know would be certainly very interested both in getting into this system and indeed perhaps even working with the likes of council ourselves with regard to powering vehicles, etc. And is it true to say, the final question, Chair, is it true to say that you're very dependent on your anchor tenants, big business, to be there before the household provision can flow from that? And perhaps that's the rationale of bringing the line down, I suppose, the A5 corridor, if you wish. And, how far, and it goes back to the original question, how far do you spread out from that anchor line that you use, and how far are you prepared to go? Thank you very much, Chair.
Alderman Hussey, the next speaker is Councillor Carr. Sean, are you there?
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. Just thank Michael and Paul for their presentation, and obviously welcome continuing investment in the area. My question is just a wee logistic one. See, domestic users, at the minute they have to go to a pay point to purchase their gas, prepaid gas. Is there any thought of going online, like electricity? Why I'm asking, in quarantine there for a while, it was actually difficult to get the gas topped up by getting somebody to go with the card. And I was just wondering, is there any plans for the domestic user to take it to more online, where you can do it from home instead of having to go to a shop? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. And the last speaker is Alderman Ramsey.
Chair.
Are you there, David?
I'm just coming. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, obviously, thank the lads for the presentation. And this is one of our very positive things going on in our country, with obviously reducing and well, we want zero carbon. That's what we're hoping for. Very good question there too was asked there, which about the fact that an online way of purchasing gas for the domestic user is definitely something that needs to be looked at. DUP very, very pleased with the work that is going on with Firmus Energy, and good customer service as well. So thank you very much again for your presentation.
Thank you, Alderman Ramsey. Councillor Stevens, do you want to come in?
Yep, thank you.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
And just on the behalf of the SLP, just like to thank Firmus Energy for coming in today. And I'd just like to ask about, I think it was last year, Firmus Energy said there's going to be a 12.48% cut in terms of tariffs for its customers outside Belfast. I'm just wondering in our council area how it's being implemented here, and also in terms of extending especially gas in the rural areas. So just like an update on what's going on there. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Stevens, and just for myself, I was going to ask the same question because I live in a rural village here, and it is partly supplied by gas, and there much of it not supplied. And I'm just wondering, when the likes of those villages like that, they're partly supplied, is there any plans to provide 100% cover for gas for the wider area? But I'll hand over to you now, Michael or Paul, whoever wants to answer them.
Michael, are you there?
Michael, you're on. That's you, Michael.
That's it. Will I take the first question? Will you take the second? We'll do it like as if we're democratic.
That'll do, Michael. Yes, indeed. Yeah.
All right. So so Christopher was asking the first question just about the environmental and access to the network. Hello. Is there a lot of echo in that? So yeah, the 550,000 properties is.
Hold on, Paul needs to unmute himself. He needs to mute. That's it.
Is that us ready now? Great. So yeah, the environmental question. So the 550,000 properties that we were saying, right across Northern Ireland here, they will have access. Those properties will have access by 2022. I think that's the combination of our plans for SGN and for Firmus Energy and for Phoenix. The idea is to have the gas mains laid there by the end of 2022 to have access, and then we're putting in a price control, a submission into the regulator to apply for additional monies for the next 6-year period as well. So the idea is to have the environmental benefits and those connections available to those properties. Like I say, about 320,000 of those 550,000 properties are currently connected or will be by the end of 2022. You're right, Christopher, whatever you say about cost is one of the key elements, and that's why we apply for funding to the regulator and also to the Northern Ireland Sustainable Energy Project and other type of funding mechanisms to assist households to do the conversion from oil and solid fuel to natural gas. So we essentially take the funding, add funding, our own monies to that, package that up and offer that to households to do the conversion over to natural gas. The cost of the gas, I think there was another question just about the cost of the gas. So the reductions that we saw, so we had 2 reductions last year, in the last year, 12 to 18 months. And we had seen those reductions and to bring natural gas down to sort of an all-time low level. Prices have probably bounced up a bit now, but we have held our price. We essentially try and hold our price every 6 months. We review our prices. We've seen the last 2 reductions. That's right across for all our customers. be they domestic or housing executive, people who own or occupier or new build, and public sector housing as well. So the idea is to try and keep prices as low as possible to incentivize people to make the conversion as much as we can. If we've had to increase prices, and be honest, we have had at times in previous years had to increase prices, but whenever we've had the opportunity to agree it with the Consumer Council and the regulator and the Department for the Economy, we've reviewed our prices and brought those back down again then as well. Paul, if I go on mute, do you want to take maybe the second question, which around biomethane, the gentleman with the septic tanks and looking at the different areas?
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Does everybody hear me? People hear me, yeah?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, I think there was a question in relation to cross border from Derek there. The pipeline may connect across border, but that's for bringing bulk gas up to the power station in Derry there. So there is that pipeline that comes up. Then we come off that high pressure pipeline and distribute gas into Derry, and that extends on to Strabane as well. In relation to biomethane, very, very interesting. Northern Ireland's got a lot of waste and a lot of waste from food and a lot of waste from farm through animals, and that all can be used through technology that we're well aware of to produce biogas, which is then made into biomethane, which is clean, sustainable, and a gas which imitates natural gas. So it means that we can just, as Michael said earlier, just put that into the pipeline and use that. So that will help to come down to carbon zero. So there are numerous biomethane sites about Northern Ireland. We're working with the regulator to get the legal pieces to allow the gas to go into the system, and that's well underway. So we would expect next year, assuming that the new energy strategy in Northern Ireland allows it, that biomethane will be going into the system, and that's an interesting use of waste. We produce the waste. The council would have a lot of waste that can be made into gas. Gas can be cleaned and put back in the system, so that becomes a circular society. So that's really, really useful for us all in Northern Ireland. The other one in the business, do we go to businesses before households? Yes, we have done, and if I'm talking specifically about Derry, all major business in Derry is provided with a natural gas supply. If we went, that was our anchor loads. We have a lot of the city. You can see on the data at the end, over 30,000 properties with gas outside their door to be connected in Derry. So we're infilling Derry at the minute, going to all areas in around the city, doing a lot of work with Apex for all that new build work that they're doing, working with the housing executive, converting all the housing executive stock to natural gas, and plus supplying all the owner occupiers. And Derry, as Michael mentioned earlier, is our golden child. It is the one where most people want to convert. And we're delighted with the reduction in carbon that natural gas has brought into Derry. The other question in relation to domestic pay point, yes, that's a good point. We don't have the facility to do that at the minute, but we are building a new billing system in here and working along with PayPoint. We do hope that something will come about that in the near future. Unfortunately, we can't at the minute. Okay.
Is that everything?
Yes, does Michael want to talk about in October, we obviously dropped our prices by 12.48% in our 10 towns area. It's a different network in 10 towns than what it is in Belfast. There's different costs, so the differential can't be the same all of the time, but there's different costs and different volumes of gas. So we do balance it all up as we go along to every price control in relation to prices that we charge our customers. Rural villages, we would love to provide gas to all rural villages, and that's things we look at. We're looking at network extensions at the minute, going into several places. It's certainly something that we won't discard, and it's obviously something we keep in our vision that we may well do in the future. That's me. If that answers everybody's questions.
Thank you for that. Derek, you were saying, come on the chat box, there were some questions not answered. Could you just remind them again, Derek?
Yeah, the question of the potential for scattergram to show those areas that aren't being covered in the support. It relates back to the last comment from Paul there that they would like to cover the rural villages, but the answer to me suggests that the 550,000 target.
Yep. Derek, I'm more than happy to organise the delivery of the maps to the council, and which will outline where the firmest network is in that area, where our main pipes are, and I will get that delivered to the council. So maybe if you guys want to have a look at that and talk about that individually, we have no problem with that.
Through you, Chair, appreciate that, Paul. But I suppose it's answering my question. There will be rural areas which cannot, because of economic
that's true.
Access.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's right. That's right, Derek. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Maurice. I was just on Derek. I was just going to come in and just to confirm the same thing. There are going to be places where we're not going to be able to, and that's where I was saying about we're working along with electricity with NIE, see where they're taking. So there's electrification potentially in some really rural areas, or renewables in some really rural areas where we just don't get our network, where we're not able to do that. Then so we'd rather be straight and say that there's going to be places where we don't get our network. The same way as in across the water, there's 85% penetration. They've had natural gas there for 45, 50 years, but there's still areas where they haven't had the network brought to them. Then so I'd rather just be straight to answer the question for Derek as well as.
That honesty is appreciated, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, for that, and thank you, John. And I appreciate that answer. That all areas will not be serviced by gas. The only question I had was for those rural villages that are partly supplied, and you have answered the question that as we move forward, they're looking to maybe go to 100% supply to those areas, because where I live, part of it is covered by gas, and I have other people who live in different areas complaining why the gas isn't around their area. So you've answered that for me. I don't have any other speakers online, and I would just want to say thanks to Michael and Paul for coming with the presentation today. Very, very good presentation, and you've answered a lot of questions here. And once again, thank yous for the presentation.
Maurice, can I thank you? Can I also just leave my number, my direct line number, so as if anybody does either want to contact myself or Paul after this? My direct dial number is 02894 427840. 02894 427840. And it just means if anybody does have a follow-up question or something, a clarification on some of the points, because there's a lot of numbers and maps, and this is our area and this is somebody else's area and all this type of thing, so it's just to make sure.
No, much appreciated.
It confuses me sometimes, Maurice, to be honest. So
that's lovely.
Chair, can Michael put that into the chat box?
Yeah.
And we members, we can have that included on the minutes today for yourselves as well.
That's okay. Is Michael and them signed out now, are they? Aye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Aye.
I'm just going to put this on the chat box and then I'll sign out for us, if that's okay.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay.
Next item of business is chairperson's business. And look, I know we're into the new year, but I would like to wish everyone a very happy new year. And I know we're all under the spell of this COVID at the minute, and it's all about very much staying safe. The first item, the next item I want to raise is, look, I want to outrightly condemn the distant Republican shootings and hoax devices. There were 2 shootings within a number of days in the city in Londonderry, and I have to say I want to condemn them outrightly. And I have to say there's no place in society for this type of activity. It is proven very clearly in the past that this activity will not succeed or success for their ends. All these people are clearly doing are creating pain, fear, and terror within that community that this activity is ongoing in. So I just want to condemn that. The second issue under chairperson's business is, it hurts me to mention this issue, but in Mountcastle Graveyard, just previous to Christmas, about a week, somewhat over a week before Christmas, a number of constituents who have loved ones buried in that graveyard contacted myself regarding bunches of flowers, some of them up to 35, 40 pound, being removed, and some of the marble flower pots being removed. And I know I have spoken to council officers, I've spoken to Connor, and it really hurts me to raise an issue like this. Disappointed that that type of activity is going on in a graveyard. And there was something in my mind that there was something on social media 2 Christmases ago. So I'd done a bit of searching, and yes, there was another family back then who had lost quite a bit of stuff, memorabilia that they had, flower pots and stuff off the grave. And you know, the message I want to send out to the people who are at this, if it can be got out to them, this needs to end. Because these are very, very sensitive areas. This is a very sensitive area. Any graveyard is a sensitive area where loved ones go to lay flowers on their families' graves and stuff like that there, and outrightly condemn it. And I know Connor will maybe want to say something on it. The other thing that I wanted to raise as well, it's a planning issue. And it's an issue that has been bugging me for a while. It's about the statutory responses. I know it's difficult to raise these at a planning committee meeting, and you know, with myself not being on the planning committee, I do get a lot of issues in and around planning, but I have a real issue with the statutory responses. Some are very good, and you know what I want maybe is that officers take note that they bring back a report maybe to the planning committee on those statutory agencies that are outstanding for quite a long time, especially over 6 months. And I know I've spoken to planners regarding this, and they have informed me that this is an issue across Northern Ireland over all the councils, and there is a piece of work ongoing to try to get it resolved. And I do know that, look, we all like to see big businesses getting their planning through, but to the man or woman in the street in the city or Strabane or in the rural area that's looking to get their planning permission through and needs some of these statutory agencies to respond back to them, I think it needs to be sorted and a report come back and see how we move it forward. That's all I have to say. I have a few speakers here that want to come in under chairperson's business. The first one is Alderman Ramsey.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's is with regard to salt bins. I've had a number of requests by community groups about access to salt. I contacted Connor, and he put me straight on to Martin Daly. And Martin has been extremely helpful. He explained about the purchase of the large bins, the large salt bins, and yes, we're looking at getting more of them. But unfortunately, obviously, one on the water side isn't just adequate at the minute. Now, we're hopeful, obviously, there's going to be more of these bins, so that will solve it. But in the meantime, in other words, this winter that we're on at the minute, Martin tried to get small bins from DFI to in place for us for Caw, Nelson Drive, and Lincoln Courts, where the community just basically are looking to help with salt and paths for their elderly and the most vulnerable neighbours in their area. Now, I know this is happening throughout the city, and it's great to see the community initiative that is happening in a lot of our areas at this time. It's a great incentive, and it's very important that we as councillors and obviously our council and the statutory agencies are seen to be encouraging this type of behaviour as regards salting streets for the elderly and the vulnerable. It needs supported, and we basically thought we were getting this sorted, and Martin was pretty optimistic as well, but unfortunately he was then told that there's no resources. Now, I'm aware that they had no resources for these bins, but bins have been delivered and filled elsewhere, so there's lack of consistency there. You know, told no resources. The thing is, like, instead of impeding community initiatives, we need to be encouraging them, and I know that these things do come down to cost as well. Some groups have even went and purchased the wee salt machines for spreading paths, and you know, they need access to salt. And the thing is, they're not asking for salt to be sprayed. You know, they're asking for just access to salt. So we obviously need answers as to why ratepayers are not supported by DFA in this one. And you know, I think it's very important that we look into this and we ask DFA to try and see if we can get help and find out, you know, why we can't support local communities who, at the end of the day, this is about saving, especially elderly, from falls and whatever. And with COVID, obviously, at the minute, it's very, very difficult. So I just want to make a proposal that we do write to DFA and ask for an update, and if we can get some funding in place that will allow, in the interim, and hopefully these larger bins will become available, and that will definitely be the issue resolved for the communities that want to help themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And on this issue, I have Alderman Guy and Councillor McHugh wants to come in. Councillor Jackson, are you wanting to come in on this issue as well?
Okay, Chair. Okay.
You're okay, thank you. And I have Councillor Donnelly just coming in. Alderman Guy.
Thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I'm not a member of this committee, but thank you. I completely agree with what Alderman Ramsey has just said. Community groups have bought the spreaders and they are having difficulty getting salt and grit to do their job. And it's helping out, you know, elderly in the area mostly. But I spoke with obviously road service as well about the issue about supplying grit boxes, and was told that we all know years ago it was just you phoned up, you got a grit box left. If someone was prepared to throw it out on the area, they were happy enough to do that. Now it's if there's a certain gradient in the street or road in that area is what it's the only time they will actually issue a salt box to that area. Now I've wrote the RMLA to bring it up with the Department of Infrastructure Committee to see if they can change anything in this on their to see if they can make an amendment on this here. But even, and I know I'm not a member of this committee, but if Alderman Ramsey would like to just even add something extra to his proposal, they write to them and actually mention that on it, if something could be done to change that about gradients, to see if they could relax that there when issuing these salt boxes and so on. But can I just say, I'd just like to point out and thank Martin Daly, who has been really helpful in this and trying to get salt and grit to them areas. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, I have no issue whatsoever with that addition to my proposal. And I know that Darren has been working on the water side with, you know, on this as well. So, you know, we're basically trying to lobby as much as we can, and this is a way forward for us, hopefully.
Thank you, David, for that there. Councillor McHugh.
Gormagat, Chair, thank you, Chair, for letting me in. I totally concur with the previous two speakers, and was actually going to raise the issue under matters arising under the DFI's report when they were last on it, Council. And I note just on page 18, you know, it's noted there that under winter gritting programme, it said additional procedures in place due to the current pandemic, well prepared as with every winter season, no issues of concern. Well, I think my fellow Derry councillors would probably concur with me in saying that that wasn't the case during the most recent spell of adverse weather, because we had major problems and securing grit, and even the grit piles that are provided on rural roads, some of them haven't even been provided since last year. But since I had discussions with road service, in fact, we met them this morning, some of my party colleagues, and I was satisfied with the answers I got from them. And I'd like to just echo as well the thanks to Martin Daly, who by Friday was able to provide some salt in my own area. And he then met myself and Councillor Hussey on site there yesterday to discuss the resiliency plan in the Derry and a site for locating the container for future salt reserves. But as I say, I made the point to DFI officials today, I think that we as a council should have more responsibility, take on more responsibility when it comes to the salting of particularly estates that don't meet the criteria for grit boxes, because it's in our interest. I mean, our bin lorries are going into those estates, and some of them on Wednesday and Thursday of last week were literally, and I know it's a cliche, we say it's like a bottle and it's like an ice rink, but it really was. And we couldn't get access to salt. We had to go and rob salt out of other bins, the very few that are in the Castle Derry area. And, you know, people volunteered and spread the salt themselves. And people are quite prepared to do that if the salt is there. So I would like to see council exploring what initiatives we could come up with. If it's something along the lines of, if somebody is prepared to purchase a salt bin from council and council would replenish it with salt. But I definitely think we need to be doing more. We need to be liaising more with road service to try and come up with initiatives to tackle it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The next speaker is Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, for letting me. Some of the points.
Gary, you're cutting out and in.
Just that, just an issue.
Not hearing, Chair.
Chair. Go ahead. Who's that speaking?
Chair, I can't hear.
Gary, we can't hear you at all, so we can't. Hello,
Chair,
Gary, we can't hear you. Sometimes if you switch off the camera, it might work. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Chair, look, I'll just be brief. It's having some IT problems here. It's regards the boxes that council have purchased and where they've situated. I've had a number of problems with people getting access to them where they're situated, and it's understand that one of the people who did use it say that it, unless it was, you know, I'm not 100%, but it's only about twice the size of the normal box that's out there, Chair. But I know in one instance here where locals had to get a private contractor in to do the area around the Long Tower because of a funeral. So there is a number of issues that have cropped up. But as a member of the Adverse Weather Group, I will be addressing it with Martin and that. But thanks for your time, Chair.
Thank you. I have two indicated speakers here, Councillor Carr and Councillor Durkin. Are these on the same issues?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead, Sean. Go ahead.
Thanks, Chair. over the holiday period there, I had the occasion to look for some salt for somebody had died, and to get access to the one in Craigan, the Triax one, I had to go through a number of people to get access. And when we got access, there was 3 bags of grit, a wee trolley, and a rubber spade, and that's all was in it, which wasn't adequate for. I only could take 1 bag of grit. Tried to get road service to grit the place, and as Councillor Donnelly had said, how to get a private contractor to grit the road around the Long Terre Church. And when I went up the one for Triax, I thought there was going to be these big bins. It was up with shovels and everything. Hey, they're the size of tuppence. There's nothing big about them. So that needs to be all reviewed again. I know the working group have been working a year on it, but for me to get access, it took a long time, and as I say, through a number of people. And that's to me, that's not good enough. That I have to ask 3 other people to get access to grip them. As I say, I phoned road service, and they've still not come. I had to get a private contractor to do it. Back in the day, with a phone road service, they would have been out straight away. You were talking to locals. You phone now, you're talking to somebody in Belfast or somewhere. They don't even know the name of the streets. You give them postcodes, couldn't find it. So we do need to be looking at some sort of mechanism where, in an emergency, in any area within our council area, that we can have a particular road granted, or footpaths for that matter. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Stevens, are you looking to come in on the same issue?
Same issue, Chair. Yep.
Go ahead.
Councillor Edwards, but I think.
Sorry, Edwards. Sorry.
Is there people before me there, or is this in the same issue, Chair?
I think Mary, I know Mary was looking to come in. Are you looking to come in on the same issue, Mary?
Yes, roughly, yes.
Go ahead then. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll keep it brief. Look, I agree with a lot that's already been said, and Councillor McHugh in particular talked about council liaison with road service and stuff. But I wanted to raise issue of land that's squarely on council ownership even. I appreciate that everyone's struggling with resources at the minute, and there is priorities that council have, but like last week, I know with the mornings that there were black ice, members of the public were getting in touch about the treacherous condition along the Bay Road walkway, for example, and I'm sure other councillors have other examples, and that's when I learned, that council would not be in a position to treat such pathways or walkways or parks. And I know this is a resource issue, but we're also very conscious that pedestrians are using these pathways, especially during COVID, during lockdown, when people are using these areas for exercise. In this particular case, that area is a lot of older residents that are going out earlier in the day. So I have actually already directed these queries and these suggestions to the council officers that this is looked at. That at the end of the day, as council, we have to respond to needs and circumstances of the time, and there must be some room for discretion at times like this. All right, Guramayoga.
Thank you, Mary. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, I still think Alderman Kerrigan was before me there.
Well, you go first.
I'll go first.
Go ahead. I have Kerrigan on here.
Thanks, Chair. And I completely agree with what's been said before, and I think it is a good initiative the council take more lead on this, especially in residential areas, Chair. But I completely agree with that. But I want to raise the rural issues with grit, and unlike the residential areas, it's been practiced that grit piles will be left at the side of rural roads, and people will go out and spread it. And like other representatives in the last probably week or so, I've had to put requests in the Clary, Gleebar, Straw, sort of wider Yarn, Cleater area, and it just seemed to take too long for them to get the grit piles out. So I would like to also add and propose that we do write to DFA and ask them about their winter policy in rural areas and whether they're going to have, if a freeze comes again, whether they're going to have enough grip piles to deliver out to rural areas, because a lot of these people can be trapped. There's vulnerable people as well, and there's constituents contacting me, can't get to their elderly parents. Some of them are living alone. I just don't think it's at the standard where it needs to be, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan?
Chair, for allowing me in. Chair,
Go ahead.
I concur with the remarks of the previous speakers, and particularly there, Councillor Edward. My opinion, DFI were in relation to the rural roads. I mean, today, DFI are out pointing out we need grip piles round roads there, round our area outside Castledare. And I mean, I know I'm not just one of these, not in my backyard or whatever here, but you know, I'm living on a road with a steep gradient on it, and there's no grit piles. There's no grit piles left from last year there. And you know, Chair, you know, we have men there with milking cows and can't get milk tankers in. And the amount of complaints and raised to me that, you know, they'll put the grit out to get the tanker in. These are self-employed farming men here whose livelihood are being affected by DFI not leaving a lock of grit out in the road because the milk tanker can't get in. There you're losing two loads of milk for 2 days milk gone. And that works into substantial money for these businesses here. And Chair, you know, it's not that hard to leave out a wee piles of grit. And again, there wasn't even a supply of grit even, say, left somewhere central in the Derry DA that people could come and collect some. You know, they're very, very poor. And again, Chair, you know, helpline trying to get through to anybody in DF, as has been stated, Councillor Carr stated, you're speaking to somebody in Belfast, but you're trying to get a call back. I'm still waiting on a call back from DFI related to this, which I had made last Thursday evening, and I was told you'd have a call back within 72 hours. I'm sure we're well past that. They just haven't bothered. Chair. So no, I do concur with their remarks, but very, very disappointed with EFI and not supporting the rural areas, leaving about a grit out the roads. Whenever they had stated, as has been previously stated by Councillor McHugh, that they were prepared for their winter period, and they really were lacking big style in it, Chair, in my own opinion. So thanks very much, Chair.
Kerrigan for that, and I think we'll wrap this issue up. There has been a proposal here by Alderman Ramsey, and it has been seconded by Derek Hussey. Are you happy enough, Alderman Ramsey, to include that issue about the rural area in your proposal?
Yeah, without doubt. And I know Keith was actually talking about that this week, and I was expecting him to come on this today.
Yeah.
I have absolutely no issue in that at all. Thank you.
Patricia, are you looking to come in on this issue or another issue?
This issue, Chair, and if you could just allow me to come in on it.
Go ahead.
Just something to add. Apex, as a housing association, have supplied a number of their estates with salt boxes. However, whenever the estate then is adopted, Road Service DFI do not take on responsibility for the salt boxes because they're saying if they were being assessed for salt boxes, then they wouldn't meet their criteria. So I was just wondering, could that be included in the representation to DFI, because they are adopting an area, but they're not adopting everything. So the housing associations are saying it's no longer their responsibility, but DFI saying they're not taking it on either. So I would appreciate if that was included some way in the letter that went to DFI to get clarity on that issue. Thank you.
And Karen, have you got that noted, that clarity that?
Yeah, so through you, Chair. Members, can I just firstly clarify, are members requesting that we write to the DFI Minister in relation to this, or the DFI Regional Roads Manager, or both?
I would say both, Karen.
Okay, no, that's fine. And just members, if I can just comment, I suppose, on council resources, and certainly our officers will bring forward a report in terms of council input into this particular issue, members, you will be aware, or some of the members who have been on the committee, sort of, I suppose, in the past, we would have brought reports back to you in the past in terms of what we actually do in relation to gritting. So, members, you will be aware that we have our own cemeteries, we have community centres, we have the civic buildings, and we have the car parks, all which our council teams will undertake winter gritting on where there's a risk of ice. Members, at the minute, that is, we do not have any further resources in terms of available to us to be able to actually undertake anything further. But clearly, if members want to increase that service and provide additional services to the public, then absolutely we will bring reports to you in terms of what that the cost of that service would be, and so members, you can then consider the costs as part of the rates estimates process. And just to add, before I let Conor to come in and address one of the other issues, Chair, I will ask that the report in terms of planning and statutory consultees be brought to the planning committee for consideration. Members, thank you.
I want to come in, Karen.
Chair, just follow on your comments on Mountcastle Cemetery. After you and I spoke, I've had a conversation with the cemetery team who will pay particular attention to not just that cemetery but every other cemetery in terms of the issues raised. And we've also brought it through to the Police Community Safety Partnership, and the relevant neighbourhood community policing team have advised that they'll up their patrols and inspections in and around that area over coming weeks. And we'll monitor the situation, and if there are any further steps that are required, we can advise back to committee in due course.
Conor, for that there. And just back to the issue about the gritting, I understand the frustration of members regarding this issue. I know a lot of us have been under pressure, but as some of the councillors have said there, the members have said, they were supposed to be in a state of readiness. And to be fair, we have not had a bad winter. This was very short and snappy, probably less than a week. And I do believe that, I don't believe there's any doubt that there isn't enough grit. I think it's down to resources and manpower and getting it out. And I do appreciate Karen coming in relation to the, council extending what they may salt. When I ring DFI looking for a rural road to be sorted out, they turn around and say, well, we can't do that there because it's not on our routes list and stuff like that. Now, we have to be very mindful as well for council, as Karen has quite rightly said, there is a cost and a resource issue as well and around that. But I look forward to the report coming back and seeing how it works out. So I think we'll move on from that item. The next speaker is Councillor Durkin wants to come in under chairperson's business again. Mary? I'll move on to Alderman McCready, if Mary isn't there at the moment. Alderman McCready?
Hi, Chair. I was just going to keep mine to matters arising within the minutes. I found something to link it in. Thanks.
You're sorted then. Kerrigan?
Chair, Chair, I was just raising an issue here, Chair, that I had raised previously, but just a wee rattle here. So relate to the bin, just a point of clarification there I'm looking for. In relation to getting a second bin for your property. Now, again, there's been contradiction between how many people or if there's a disability in the house or various things, but I'd been told it had been 6 persons in a house to qualify that you could get a second bin. Then I was told no, it was 8 persons on the property and various things like that. So I'm just not 100% sure, and just clarifying that, Chair, would be beneficial. But as well as that, Chair, I know with our own Chair, my own situation there, our blue bin now would be very full. Our blue bin would be full within a week, Chair, without a shadow of a doubt. Now, I had approached council staff in relation to buying a second blue bin. I says, I'll buy a second blue bin myself. I says, if I place it there, will it be collected? If I put out the 2 blue bins. But I was told you can buy the second bin, but we won't lift it. If you're registered for 1 bin to be lifted at your property, that's all will be lifted. Now, it's just the case of, Chair, I'd have thought then it's cheaper then for recycling issues there. Or, well, maybe I'm wrong on that, but it's an issue then that, ultimately we have a family member there living on their own, and our blue bins fall within a week. We're carting stuff then to their bin and filling their blue bin. And Chair, I just thought then, are we not seeking to try to encourage more recycling in relation to it? And should we not be encouraging, if ones can, get a second blue bin there? It's just it's wondering on that one there, Chair. I know, to be fair, a lot of other stuff there, black bin, it's been sent away to a Kicks Count charity. So therefore, that would be stuff that wouldn't be traditionally going to the blue bin, so our black bin just wouldn't be as full. That's away to one of these charities things that takes us stuff for recycling purposes. But we as a council do not recycle in that element of stuff, such as your chocolate bar wrappers or crisp packets or things like that would be just going into ordinary black bin. But say we put that away privately ourselves and sort that out. But it's just the case, Chair, clarifying that there, because there's a number of ones then raised an issue, Chair, about going to Strabane. And again, this is falling back to Kiln Recycling Centre, not being there, Chair, as well, that people went after Christmas, Chair, and they'd spent time and sorted out your Christmas wrapping paper between the stuff that can be recycled and the stuff that can't be recycled. The shinier stuff doesn't be recycled and the more paper stuff can be, and sorting out the boxes that Christmas presents come on. Took it to the centre at Strabane, and it was just winged into the ordinary bin lorry, just with all your other ordinary rubbish as well, Chair. And this is just wasted their time sorting out the recycling. And it's just the case of, is there anything that could be provided in that regard as well, Chair? It's just those wee points there, so that's just my wee thoughts on it there, and just if we could get a wee response on it and just to clarify from my own mind. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Conor, I wonder, Conor, could you come in maybe to answer some of those?
Yeah, Chair, thanks for that. In terms of the bins, there is no set policy in terms of the number of members within a home. And what we tend to do is organise a visit from a member of the team, and they can talk through the individual challenges that families are experiencing. Council policy is 1 bin per week, and that's down to the practicalities. We lift over, we service bins from over 50,000 properties in any week. And if that number of bins doubled, we would need additional crews to do that. So there's a practical impact on permitting people to put out second bins. But we do understand that people have challenges. Say we will quite gladly send officers out to discuss the needs with individuals. And in certain circumstances, we have switched to larger bins as opposed to second bins. So there's a range of solutions out there. And quite, if you contact me with the details, I know yourself, Alderman Carrigan, you have an issue, quite happy to get one of the team to come and discuss it with you. And if there are any other residents out there who are struggling with their waste, then we can get some of the team to visit them. In terms of Strabane, look, I appreciate the issues around the closure of Kiln and what that works out to be in terms of waste and so on. I can give you the assurance, however, that all of the waste that is brought to Strabane and put into the lorries is taken away to a materials recycling facility and started again. I appreciate that duplication of effort and all of that, but we're working through a difficult situation at the moment, and we will be bringing a report into February's committee in terms of progress we've made with Kiln and looking some steer from members about how we might progress that.
Enough, Alderman Kerrigan, with that?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Conor.
Okay. Alderman Hussey, the next person in under chairperson business.
Thank you, Chair. And just briefly, I'm not come back on the subject, but to totally endorse all of the issues referenced to gridding and salting, etc. And hopefully, I think it was Councillor Donnelly who mentioned there the adverse weather working group. Perhaps there's an item for a special meeting of that particular group on the issue. Moving on then, I had 2 points that I wanted to bring forward onto your business, Chair. Firstly, it's my understanding that during the first lockdown, car parking fees were lifted on the council car parks. Maybe somebody can clarify if that is in fact true. And if it was true, would it be something that council should consider now in the second lockdown? And I'm particularly mindful that the majority of traffic should be workers who have no other option than to be at their work. They are key workers, and that in some way we should be giving encouragement to them with regard to the essential work that they're doing in our community. So I suppose my first question would be, was there free car parking in the first lockdown? Can that be instigated in this current second lockdown? My second point follows on from your point about cemeteries, Chair, and it's with regard to, is there a time whereby funeral directors and ministers have to have the hearse and the coffin in our cemeteries? It was suggested to me by a minister that he had been told that the funeral cortege has to be at the cemetery by 1 o'clock. Now, there is an issue here. And I don't want to be religious about it, but for example, Roman Catholic funerals tend to be in the morning, whether it's a special service or a special mass that can be held in the morning. Protestant funerals have always tended to be in the afternoon, traditionally, 2, half 2, 3 o'clock, and the situation can be exacerbated on a Sunday when a minister may be taking 2 or 3 services. I know, for example, my own service will finish at about 1 o'clock. And if the minister has to take a funeral service, particularly on a Sunday after that, you can understand the situation of rushing to a house to do the service at the house, prior then perhaps the family wanting a family service in their church, and then getting the remains to the actual cemetery. I'm not sure, can somebody clarify, is there a cut-off time when funerals are expected to be in our cemeteries? Thank you for that, Chair.
Alderman Hussey, two very valid issues. Is it Karen or Connor's going to take them?
Chair, if I can take the second one.
Yeah.
In terms of burials, there are additional pressures over winter months, and particularly daylight hours and the hours available to complete burials. As people understand, once the family go, then the teams have to complete the interment of their remains, and that's particularly difficult during winter hours when we have less daylight. And also our crews are having to prepare graves for burial the next day, sometimes in darkness as well. So there are operational issues, particularly over winter months, and we encourage and advise that we would like them in as early as possible. Now we have some flexibility, but again, it's a challenge in terms of winter hours and available daylight to carry out the necessary works. But again, if they talk to if the funeral directors talk to the cemetery supervisors, some flexibility, but again, it's limited, particularly over winter months.
Thank you, Chair. And if I can just come in terms of car park charges, Chair, I do believe that there was some flexibility around car parking charges during the first lockdown. Car parking is actually managed by our Business and Culture Directorate. So I will make contact with Stephen Gillespie in terms of that issue. And members, clearly it would be something that members could consider at full council if they wanted to. Obviously, the team would need to bring forward, I suppose, the financial implications of that, and that would all be, I suppose, balanced against, the cost around enforcement, etc. So, with their business, that they come back to members in relation to that particular issue.
Appreciate that, Chair. Just on Connor's point, I would emphasise the main concern that was coming to me wasn't coming from the funeral directors. It was coming from the clergy who were having to partake in these services with particular regard to Sundays. And I'm sure you yourself will understand that particular issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Was Councillor Jackson looking to come in under chairperson, or did he say that he's able to raise it somewhere else? Am I right in saying that, Councillor Jackson?
No, thanks, Chair.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Chair, I wanted to come on an issue that you raised under chairperson's business.
Yeah.
And it was the first issue that you raised in relation to the shootings.
Yeah.
And I want to concur with the comments that you made. I agree with him wholeheartedly, but I do have concerns around selective condemnation. And Chair, I know when we met in December, and the day before our committee met, there was 9 shots fired at a house in the Waterside, and there was absolutely no condemnation of that attack on a home within the Waterside. There's been quite a substantial increase in activity from armed gangs within the Waterside, where there's been devices being left and shots fired and intimidation of the local community, and there's absolutely no condemnation. So I just want to put it on the record that if we're going to condemn an attack, which we should rightly so, we should do it across the board. So I just wanted to make that point here. Thanks.
Just to go back into you, I have continually, any time that I have asked or had issues like this raised, and I'm chairing a meeting or anything like that, there, I continually condemn all activity, no matter whether it's in the Waterside or city side, or no matter who carries it out. And look, I do believe that Gary Middleton had out a statement on this condemning the shootings in the Waterside, or the firing of shots at the time. Now, I stand to be corrected on that. I do believe the DEP were out and condemned that. Maybe not just at the committee meeting, but I know, and as I say, I stand to be corrected. And if there are any of my colleagues out there can come in and back me up on that story, they can come in and agree with me. But I do take a point. We have to condemn all activity, all terrorist activity, no matter where it's coming from. I take that point, that we have to condemn all activity, no matter where it's coming on.
Chair, Councillor Ramsey, if I can come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's just to confirm that, yes, the DEP did attend the shooting on the Waterside. We were there for quite a while, and we talked with a lot of people in the area who were very, very concerned. And yes, we did publicly condemn. We didn't at this committee, as far as I know, we didn't, but we did condemn this publicly. We condemn all acts of terrorism and intimidation of our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ramsey, for that. And that finalises chairperson's business. So we move on now to matters arising of our E&R meeting on the 9th of December, as these have been ratified by Council. Is there any matters arising out of these minutes? Do you want to come in? Derek?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, it's already been referred to by Councillor McHugh, the declaration from road service and their winter gritting programme. Everything was punctually through it wasn't. But there was one other issue in the reply there. I had talked about Donegal County Council on the Brexit issue and Brexit funding with regard to the Castleberg to Cloddy link over from the, as was the Lurganboy Road leading over into Cloddy and I noticed that the reply from road service refers to Cloddy Bridge. I was actually referring to the link from Castleberg through to Cloddy and what was happening on the Donegal stretch of that road with regard to ensuring that it's up to standard. One other one then on page 26, 252 or 20, the DFI recovery. It's a bugbear of mine. We constantly refer to the two main population centres, I suppose, the city and Strabane. I'm also mindful of the need for these measures to be available within our rural settlements, particularly the larger rural settlements that exist within our area. And I'm mindful that this is a DFC recovery, COVID recovery issue that has been looked at on page 26 on 252 and indeed 253. But I would hope that we can balance that out with the needs of the rural settlements as well as taking care of the city and indeed Strabane town. Thank you, Chair.
For that, those comments will be noted. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. I want to raise an issue on the street cleaning side, and I know it's an issue that you've raised in the past as well, but I think since we've got into the current set of restriction, I think dogfowl is a massive issue. It's something that I get contacted on a daily basis, especially across the Derry. The Glebe, Saya Mills, Castaic, Victoria Bridge are particularly bad, but I know that other parts of the council area and in the city as well is particularly bad, and I have raised it with street cleansing services, but I know that we had the Christmas break and then we had a lot of bad weather last week, a lot of ice, and probably that normal street cleaning wasn't done, but I'd like to get an update of Connor on where we are with that. But on a second issue, Chair, I think the issue is exacerbated during lockdown, dogfooting, but I don't think that the council is doing enough preventative work on it. And I know they put up bins, but we need to get fines out to more people for these perpetrators, Chair. So I would like the issue revisited by the committee and look at what preventative work can be done, and especially in terms of fines, Chair. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Members, I'll let Connor come in a second in terms of cleansing in particular. But members, just to remind you that the control of dogs and indeed prevention and all of the communications around that actually lies within our health and communities directorate within our environmental health services. So certainly, I know there's very good working relationships between our street cleansing teams and dog control, but they are actually the people who are responsible for the dog control wardens who issue the fines for irresponsible dog control and who have control over that dog control policy. Now, I do know that this is an issue that we have discussed at our senior leadership team, and certainly, it's an issue that has been raised on a number of occasions in terms of, I suppose, people not being responsible for their own animals. And certainly, I know that the Chief Executive asked that a specific and detailed focus be given to this by the Health and Communities team, which I do know that they are doing. But Connor, if you wouldn't mind commenting just, I suppose, specifically on street cleaning.
Yeah, thanks. Through you, Chair. I think it's obvious that as a result of lockdown and people are exercising in probably a lot of the same areas, that there's been a significant increase in dog fighting over recent times. I've talked with the street cleaning managers, and we're going to focus our efforts more on those highly populated areas, both in terms of cleaning and then our colleagues in environmental health, enforcement and educationary activities as well. It's an ongoing issue. We have upwards of 500 dog bins throughout and across the city and district. They're emptied. Some of those are emptied nearly on a daily basis now. So there are a lot of responsible owners out there, but we understand that there's also a significant number of irresponsible owners, and that's where the target enforcement needs to be at. But certainly from a street cleansing perspective, we'll focus on those areas where there's been a higher incidence of dog fouling, with a view to get that removed as quick as possible. But I think the cure to this, the long-term cure, has to be prevention, and has to be that owners take responsibility and clear up after the dogs when they're out on their walks.
Thank you, Connor and Karen, for that. And I agree with you. And this is an issue that I've raised many, many times. And we can put up all the signage and bins, but unfortunately, the dogs can't read. And it's the dog owners, and especially those dog owners who are irresponsible. And look, when I'm out and about, I do see quite a number of responsible dog owners who do clean up and use the bins and do all that. But I think you're right, Connor. It's about pushing the boat out on these people who are responsible. Happy enough, Councillor Edwards?
Yep, happy, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. The next one is Alderman McCready.
Thank you, Chair. It's reference ER 238/20 in reference to Eglinton Recycling Centre. Over the past month since our last committee meeting, a large portion of the residents and, well, in particular, Mr. Park, who's been signing off on a lot of the letters, just raised concern on ambiguity of the messaging and how either his inference or his perception was wrong. I did raise this at the working group yesterday, but I thought I'd bring it to this committee because ultimately that's where it ought to go. So it's just looking to clarify Council's position on exactly the outcome of Eglinton. And just 3 points on this. Firstly, to commend Nicola, who works on the team, who's been kind of leading that correspondence with the residents to remove any ambiguity and set the record straight. So just a commendable point for her, just for please. Secondly, just they had concerns about the future of the site. They wanted clarification on that there's no intent by council or members at this point in time to close the site indefinitely. And thirdly, and lastly, is that the continued operations there at the moment is based on a booking system, which is via a phone call at the moment, but will be extended to other means of IT in due course. So just 3 points there. Just commend Nicola, and if I could just get clarification from Karen on council's position, so we're absolutely clear and constituents can be reassured. Thanks.
Can I be added to the list, Morris?
Yep. Do you want to come in on that as well?
No, a later item.
That's okay. That's okay. Karen, do you want to answer that or come back
Yeah.
to Alderman McCready?
Yeah, if I can come in, and then perhaps if Conor can come in if he needs to add anything to what I have to say. And Chair, just to be clear to you that our officers at this stage are not having any conversations or any discussion at all around closure of any council assets whatsoever. And members, that, as you will be aware, is for absolutely a matter for members to decide on. We are at the minute operating our services as normally as we can. Clearly, the restrictions have had to be put into place in relation to a couple of our recycling centres because of COVID and the guidance that we've got to operate under because of that. But certainly, we as officers have absolutely no agenda in terms of closure of any council facilities, and again that's purely a matter for our elected members to take forward should the need arise. So Conor, I don't know whether you need to add anything to that.
No, Karen, you've covered that point. I think just it's worth re-emphasising that the booking arrangements are not as a result of activities within the recycling centre per se. They're because of the wider business activities on the site. There are multiple business users on that, and the health and safety executive view is that there needed to be a wider traffic management plan that has not been put in place. But a consequence of that is that we can only bring people onto the site using a booking system. As Alderman McCready has said, we look to expand how people can book slots onto that through the phone. We're aware that a lot of people prefer maybe online booking, but we're also aware that there are those who would prefer a phone call. So we're looking at expanding the opportunities for people to book, but it will be going forward outside of COVID a booking system that remains in place on that site, as is the same for Glendermot. And as I say, that's got nothing to do with the waste operations within the site, but it's all to do with the wider business activities across both of those locations, in that they're shared sites, there are multiple vehicle movements, and there are pedestrians on, and from the health and safety perspective, vehicles and pedestrians must be separated, and hence the need for a traffic management plan. And I trust that clarifies the position.
Okay, thank you, Conor and Karen, for that. Councillor McCann.
I wanted to raise a matter concerning my mobile road, which we have ER 248/20, and the broad issue in relation to Maboy sort of that I wanted to raise was the fact that I believe, and others in the environmental area believe, that Maboy is not an issue that comes within the remit of one particular department.
Just before you go on, Councillor McCann, just to make you aware that this is on an agenda item further down, item number 15.
Okay, I'll wait and do my entire.
Yep, to item 15.
That's the second item. I was debating it up. Okay.
Yep, that's okay. So that's matters arising ended out of the minutes of the meeting. We move on now to item 8.
I think Frank is going to take that one, Chair.
Frank?
Yep, that's okay. Just call it up here. So this item number 8 is again members consent to new development at the former Everton Primary School. I suppose what's just slightly different to the sort of standard process that we follow in this one is that the developer Radius Housing Association made a sort of community participation exercise out of it with a local primary school. So they've still come up with a preferred name that complies with the policy. So we're just looking members' agreement to that.
Thank you for that. And I have one indicated speaker on item 8, and that's Alderman Ramsey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank Everton and Oak Grove Primary School children for the good work and outcomes of the consultation. And normally these proposals are straightforward because the recommendations come forward to council, and we basically go with the first recommendation. This is a different scenario we're dealing with here because this was not a greenfield site, and I know there always was. That area was named after birds of the Loch Foyle, etc. But this wasn't a greenfield site. There's a history there of Everton Primary School, and it's probably means something to hundreds, if not thousands, of people in the surrounding area who attended that school. Now, the wording on the letter in option 3 actually kind of, I think, has convinced a number of people that I've been speaking to throughout the community by one of the kids, and it's option 3. And it's I think a good name for the new housing development would be Everton Oaks, because we have an oak branch in our school crest, and I think it would represent our school forever. Now, we all know that we have Oak Grove Primary School, who was involved obviously in this consultation. We also know that Oak is on the primary school, Everton Primary School crest, and the feeling in the community, that the community groups that I've spoken with, is yes, there's 3 good names there, but this name means more to the community and the surrounding area. And obviously in the future it would be probably something we could look at whenever we get our green space and all sorted out there, that the kids of the local schools in the area, not just the 2 schools, we could have all the waterside primary schools, planting maybe an oak tree on behalf of their schools, with maybe even a time capsule, something like that. It's just the history is there. And as I say, I've contacted the local community groups, and the preference seems to be on the ground is option 3, although the other 2 names are obviously relevant as well. But the history means a lot to the people in that surrounding area, if not the entire waterside. Thank you. I propose that.
Proposed. That's okay.
Thank you. Chair, we'll need a seconder for that proposal.
That's what I was just going to say, Karen.
Chair, I'd indicated in the.
Councillor Jackson, come on in. Yep.
Yeah. Chair,
Leave
I'm happy to second I was actually initially concerned when Councillor or Alderman Ramsey came on, because I thought it was a great initiative involving the two schools, and I think that the involvement of the school children should be encouraged. And I'm happy to second the proposal. I was worried that we might have been suggesting another name, but Chair, I would like, I think it's appropriate at this stage to do for a declaration of interest. I am, as is Alderman Ramsey, members of the steering group, which is associated to that site, and it's just in the interest of transparency, I just want to declare that I'm a member of that group. Thanks. Yeah.
That's okay.
Thank you, Councillor, for that there. That's right. We both have to declare an interest. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Boyle, do you want to come in? Councillor John Boyle?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Jackson. Just to say, Chair, I'm fully supportive of the proposal from Alderman Ramsey. Given the extensive history of the city and the attachment to the two schools, and obviously the Oak element of that is also contained in the broader name of our city. So very welcome, and indeed one of the suggestions there I could see was Oak Leaf, and I completely agree that that probably wouldn't have been appropriate because it could be confused with other areas of the city, most notably in an area of the city where I'm personally from. So I'm delighted to know that the Powers Lane will be getting redirected to the wrong place on the water side. So just to support it, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle, for that. Go ahead.
Chair, is it okay if I just come in very quickly, just for a point of clarification for members' consideration? Is just clearly, and Frank, maybe you can help me out with this if I'm not 100% accurate, but my understanding is that when the developer actually spoke to the schools, the preferred name that the schools had come up with was actually the Caspian Way to do, I think they had a link from the kids' perspective to the book and The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, and the author, etc. But certainly members, the option 3, Ebrington Oaks, it does absolutely comply with the policy, and absolutely members, if members are happy to go with that, then absolutely members were happy to take that forward. But I just wanted to make sure that members were aware of that as well, in terms of a point of information.
Thank you, Karen, for that update. So the proposal has been put forward by Alderman Ramsey that we go for option 3, Ebrington Oaks, and it is seconded by Councillor Jackson, and the SDLP supported it through Councillor John Boyle. I hear no one else speaking against it. Go ahead.
Yeah, John Boyle again, Chair. I think Frank Morrison's actually trying to come in there, Chair. He's on mute.
Sorry.
I wouldn't mind hearing what Frank has to say, because one thing I was big concerned about, we don't really want to be disappointing children either. I wasn't aware of that fact.
Yeah. I just wanted to confirm what Karen said, that the order in which they're presented within the report was the order of preference of the schools, the school kids. So their first preference was for the Caspian Way, and as Karen said, that there was 2 reasons for that. The sort of theme that was used to name the streets originally in that area, and the second was to do with a character in C.S. Lewis's Narnia stories. So just so that if that didn't come across clear in the report, the preferences given in the report correspond to the preferences of the children who participated in the exercise.
Thank you for that update once again. Alderman Ramsey, does that change your idea? No?
I know myself that, and obviously we're delighted the kids have had the opportunity, and they came across with, I think it was 5 different names, and all good names. But this one, I think everyone agrees that this one is definitely, the third one is very, very relevant. And as I said, if it was a greenfield site, it would be named Caspian Way, and that would basically be it. But this is a site of major historical significance for the area.
That's okay. And Councillor Jackson, you're happy enough to second that?
Chair, yes.
That's okay. No, that's okay. Just declare that passed. That's through. We move on to item 9, street naming or in Maher-Mason. Is that Frank again, is it?
Yep.
Frank, go ahead.
Frank, you're on mute. I can take it if you...
Sorry, just a little slow there, calling it up on my computer here. So again, this is a naming proposal for a new development on Victoria Road at Maher-Mason. So they've proposed a name called Mahari View, and it complies with the policy. So the recommendation is to go ahead with their first preference.
You've heard the recommendation there. Was there a seconder?
Proposed Chair, Councillor McHugh.
Councillor McHugh, thank you.
I'll second that, Chair, Councillor Boyle. And interestingly as well, there's a place in from a dog called Bahari. There you go.
Yep. Thank you. So it's been proposed and seconded. No other issues with it, so declare that passed. Item number 10.
Again, this was to do with a plebiscite that was carried out following requests for bilingual signage at 3 different locations, and the results of that are set out in the table. The recommendation is that the bilingual signage be erected at 3 of those sites: Clooney Gardens, Strabane, Lenamore Gardens, and Sandringham Gardens in Derry. One of the streets lobbied didn't attain the minimum consent threshold of 67%.
It's proposed by John Boyle. Do we have a seconder?
Chair.
Who's that?
Alderman Ramsey.
Alderman Ramsey has seconded. Everyone happy enough? No, it's okay. Item passed. We move on to item 11, Green Infrastructure Action Plan.
Yep, Chair, I'll take that one.
That's okay.
Members, the purpose of this report is to present you with the annual report on the implementation of our Green Infrastructure Action Plan. And members will recall that they approved the need to undertake a Green Infrastructure Plan, which was developed and was presented to the Strategic Growth Partnership. It was publicly consulted on and approved by Council in September 2019. And there were 2 parts to that. There was a strategy and the action plan. And members, there were 184 actions which are being delivered in partnership with our stakeholder groups. And it's a live, evolving document which is subject to ongoing review. And members, we are presenting now today the first annual report to provide an update on delivery of the action plans. And you can see there a very detailed report in front of you, which outlines that 62% of the actions have commenced and 22% of the actions have been completed. And these are across the various strategic themes. And members, these are laid out in section 3 of your report here today. And members, I think really there aren't any specific financial implications in relation to this at this time. And members are asked to note the actions undertaken and to endorse the continuation of the delivery of the Green Infrastructure Plan moving forward. And I'm happy to take any questions or comments that members have in relation to that.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Durkin? Councillor Mary Durkin?
Yes, Chair, I'm just happy to propose the continuation of the Green Infrastructure Plan assessed in the report, very detailed report. It doesn't seem that long since we were launching the Green Infrastructure Plan as a council, and it is indeed encouraging to see the progress, and of course we'll keep going, and there's so many different exciting projects within that detailed report. But yeah, so thank you, Karen, for that report, and happy to propose the endorsement.
Next speaker, Councillor Fleming. Thanking you, Chair, and a big thank you to Karen and her team for the report. And as Councillor Durkin has said, it's a very detailed report, and obviously involves a lot of work. And congratulations to all of those who have carried it out so far. It's a massive enterprise for the first year's report, and a number of our items today on for information, but you can see that some of them are covered in it as well, in terms of the whole play plan and the natural capital account, mental health, in terms of the provision of facilities for mental health. And we've seen that even during COVID, just the sheer amount of people who are making use of the walkways and the green space. And also in terms of the whole issue of greenways, and obviously council have major projects in terms of cross-border and that, as well as the Foyle Greenway. So there's a lot up on there, and congratulations to all concerned. You second that, Councillor Fleming? Yes, Chair, I would be happy to second it. That's okay. That's okay. The next speaker is Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Karen, for that report. As others have said, very, very welcome. Just a couple of issues from the report. 3.5, the master plan for Clan Mills. That, of course, was a paper exercise. Is there any indication of when that paper exercise will actually be actioned within the Clan Mills area? And later on, it mentions about the don't mow it, let it grow, or mow it, grow it. And I'm wondering, I'm thinking back to, I think it was around about July 2019, when I mentioned the idea of wildflower planting along our roadsides and council areas, that we would have the availability of doing that, and indeed cooperation with DFI Road Service on that. I know at that time DFI Road Service had indicated, in fact it may have been a meeting with DFI that it was brought up, but they had indicated that they had trial schemes ongoing in other parts of Northern Ireland. Is that sort of idea being brought into the promotion of our green infrastructure moving forward? But thank you for the report, Karen. Very, very welcome. Thank you.
Chair, I'm happy to come in on those points if you want.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think really in terms of Cyan Mills members, we are in the process of preparing an implementation framework for the delivery of the Cyan Mills master plan, which clearly there are a number of actions that we can take forward, in partnership with other partners, etc. So we will bring a further report to committee in terms of that. In terms of the feasibility and timescales and costs, etc. around that. And in terms of the Don't Mow, Let It Grow initiative, then it's quite timely, members, because we did have correspondence from DFI basically wanting to consider how we could work in partnership in terms of this. I do know that the DFI Minister is keen that we implement some wildflowers along DFI owned assets, and our team were very quick to go back to them and provide as much guidance and assistance as we could do. So hopefully that will come to fruition. Certainly, members, you are aware yourselves that we have undertaken rewilding, if you like, on a number of areas throughout the district. Clearly, where we can, in consideration of safety issues and indeed those play and other types of amenity issues, but we are very keen to consider that and move ahead with it where we can do so at all possible. So I hope that provides some more information, and If DFI are able to work with us in partnership with us on any particular projects on their own assets, then certainly we will bring a report in to update members on where that is and how that's particularly going. Okay, thank you.
Excellent, Chair, and big thanks, Karen. Thank you.
And just on my behalf as chair of the committee, I welcome the report coming forward and welcome all the work that has been done through yourself, Karen, and the rest of the team. Job well done. Item 12, Strabane street trees.
Chair, I'll take that item as well. And this is to provide members with a report on the maintenance of street trees within Strabane Town Centre and to seek endorsement to undertake some works in respect of those trees. And members will be aware that we had secured external funding from Department for Communities as part of the COVID recovery programme, and members will be aware from previous items that works that were being supported in terms of physical works were primarily environmental improvements and streetscape enhancements. And following engagement with various stakeholders in Strabane, including the banks and local stakeholders, the condition and appearance of the trees in Strabane Town was identified as a priority action that they would like Council to address. And members, the various streets are outlined in section 1.5 of your report. And our Council's Tree and Woodland Officer have inspected all of these streets and looked at how we might actually deal with this particular issue. And really, the key issues are laid out in section 2 of your report, members. We believe that these trees, as they lie within adopted streets, actually fall under the ownership of DFI. We believe there may have been a formal arrangement in place with the former Strabane District Council to provide some assistance in relation to this, but we haven't got that available and we've requested that from DFI. But the DFI officers have advised that they have no objection to the works being undertaken, and therefore we would propose that we go ahead with that. And really, members, we have undertaken procurement of the works, which would be the cost of the works would be met through the DFC Recovery Revitalisation Grant, which we've liaised with DFC on. So members, your approval is sought for Council to undertake the tree works using external funding in Strabane Town Centre, and then that we work with DFI around longer term maintenance and management responsibilities for these. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards wants to come in on this issue.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Karen and the team for the work on this issue. Myself and our MLA down in McCrossan actually met with John Kelpie probably around a year ago on this very issue, so it's good to see it come to fruition, and I think it really will tidy up the town and the town centre, and added to that the fact that it's not having an impact on council budgets as well, which is very good. So happy to propose the report, Chair. Thank you.
Alderman Hussey.
Thank you, Chair. Happy to second the recommendation. And indeed, the Tree and Woodland Officer, will the officer be available to check on other trees that are planted as part of our street furniture throughout other areas of the district? And when I say that, very early on when the Tree and Woodland Officer was appointed, I'm mindful of the excellent work he carried out in Sion Mills with regard to tree pruning, etc. Or maybe he didn't carry it out, but arranged for it to be carried out, which was very welcome in that area. But certainly welcome the work to be done in Strabane Town, but mindful of other areas throughout the council where we have trees which are part of street furniture. If the Tree and Woodland Officer would also take some note of those as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, just through you, Chair, members, absolutely, 100%. And if any member has any particular trees that we would like the officer to look at, then certainly we can consider that. We can arrange a visit, and then following on for that, we can consider, responsibility and whether or not council have a role, or indeed if someone else has a role, how we engage with them. So absolutely, more than happy to organise that.
Thank you, Karen, for that there, and that takes us in. Item 13 to 17 is for noting or for information. I want to raise one item under 17, Karen, if that's okay. Myself, Karen, we attended, many of us attended yesterday a meeting regarding play provision in the rural area. And I have to say it was a very, very good meeting. We looked at a number of issues, and we looked at a number of gaps where there is no play provision. We looked at areas where there is provision and some not very good provision. And many of us were in agreement that we look at the idea, maybe the problem being, Karen, as you will know, it's always down to getting land to build the play parks on. So we looked at we were looking at schools that have schools that are ground that is lying dormant and other areas. We also looked maybe at sports fields, cricket clubs or football clubs or whatever sports are involved in, to see if there be pieces of land there for play area. And there are areas then where there's no play provision. But very clearly, Karen, coming across from yesterday's meeting, there was agreement by everyone at that meeting that we do believe to move this forward especially for rural areas that have no play provision and need upgrading. There was a recommendation coming from the group yesterday that we need to raise the issue that there needs to be a budget put in place, and it needs to be put in place for this year, because as I know, working on a number of play parks and play provision, I'm always very mindful that if funding becomes available from somewhere, it's always good to have a number of facilities spade ready and ready to go, and we have our planning through, costings done, and all the architect and engineering works done. So Karen, it's just that was raised yesterday, and I just wanted you to note it and speak on. Now, I do see here that we have a number of speakers maybe want to come in on this.
Yeah, Chair, do you want me to just come in to update members first of all, and members will see from the report that we have suggested that we have a further presentation to council, to this committee of council, in relation to the play strategy, following on from the various engagements that happened across the DEAs. And members, as you're aware, the quality and the provision of play equipment across the whole district has been raised, and certainly the need obviously for either refurbished play equipment and indeed new play equipment in areas of need that are gaps has been raised. And members, as a council, you will want to have a strategy in order to actually ensure that we meet that need. Now, certainly, members, it's something that you may wish to raise as part of the raised estimates meetings that are coming up, and indeed, members, but just a slight note of caution in terms of the actual process for delivery of new play facilities. Members, it's not something that can be delivered in a number of months. The process to basically undertake options appraisals, finding land, the land's acquisition process, basically engaging with local communities on what we actually need, then moving on to actually appointing design teams and designing up schemes to then take to planning for planning approval, which they will normally need, and then on to development. It is a long process. It's not a very short-term process. There may be some quick ones as we become available, but certainly, you know, our team, both within you know, our environment team, who our play development officer, and indeed Colin Kennedy's team, and indeed our capital team, have got very, very significant levels of experience in taking forward these projects, so we'll be able to. But certainly, members, you know, the process to date so far has been able to provide some of that information that will be helpful to members when we're considering the future funding strategy to meet all these needs. And you are aware, members, over the last number of years, we've been very successful at actually delivering on play in some areas of the district, certainly the former Derry City Council, where this process was ongoing for up to 10 years, and a number of parks were developed through external funding. Certainly since the merger of the new council, a number of play parks have developed in the former Strabane District Council, but absolutely there's a recognition across the rural area that there's definitely a need. So happy to take on board members' comments, and members will want to consider that, you know, when they're considering the rates estimates process. And indeed, you know, we would estimate, as it's outlined in the report, that we bring forward a funding strategy over the next you know, medium term, in order to be able to make sure that we meet the needs of the community in terms of play.
Thank you, Karen, for that. Alderman Hussey, you want to come on that 17 as well?
Thank you, Chair. Like yourself, I was at that meeting yesterday with other councillors. Very fruitful meeting, and agree with you with regard to those areas where there's a deficit. In fact, no play facilities. That needs to be addressed. Karen, you're saying that is not a short-term item, it's a longer term, and I totally understand that. But those areas have to be serviced just the same as anywhere else within the district council area. My concern is for those play areas that have been identified as not being up to standard. And I'm holding this up. Members will have seen these sheets that came through from Playboard. There's the one from my own electoral area. There's not one green indicated square on that. 9 of the 14 play parks are in the red. That isn't acceptable. And I don't think we can wait until the 2022 rates process to get this started. And, you know, it's an upgrading to an appropriate standard that is required on a lot of our play areas, not just in my own area, but across all of the EAs has been identified by Playboard. So I will be pushing hard within the rates process that there must be a start made to addressing the deficiencies, the very obvious deficiencies that have been identified, for the benefit of all of our people, and particularly the young folk that we are here to represent and to provide for. So I hope we will be mindful of that. Colin was made very clear on that yesterday, and I believe that particularly in my own area, I see other councillors from the area prepared to come in. I believe they will endorse what I'm saying, that we do need a start to be made to bringing those play areas that we have up to an acceptable standard. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Hussey. Councillor Edwards.
Chair, thanks for letting me in. And I completely agree with Alderman Hussey there. We had that meeting yesterday, and I do want to thank Helen Cohen, the council team, and Playboard NA for bringing the report and for laying out what is a very dire situation, and especially in terms of the Derg. I know we're Strabane as well, Chair, and I agree with Alderman Hussey that we do need to get the ball rolling on this. People can't wait years, especially if rates are going up, Chair. People are asking, what are we getting for rates, especially in rural areas? I know it's coming to me across the Derg. What services are they getting for rates other than their buns empty, Chair? I think that we need to show people, especially in the rural area, that they won't be left out, Chair. So fully agree with Alderman Hussey there. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Chair. Just firstly, on behalf of Sinn Féin, I just want to commend the work of Playboard and in relation in terms of consulting with right across our district, and when you look at the report, it's a substantial piece of work. Although parts of it make very grim reading, even parts of it where we, and as Karen has acknowledged, around the work that has already been carried out in providing play within the former Derry City Council area, there still is substantial gaps. There's still, and because of that, there's been a lot of anticipation of this report or of this piece of work. So I think in relation to the previous comments, I think we would all be in agreement that we need to have something in place to work towards addressing the need that's been identified in this. It's not good enough for us just to identify where the gaps exist. We need to be putting a plan in place to fill in those gaps. So thanks, and thanks for the report, Karen. On behalf of Sinn Féin, we welcome it. Yep.
Thank you for that, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Patricia Logue, my apologies, I missed your name.
No bother, Chair. Thank you very much.
My apologies.
Thank you. First of all, thanks for letting me speak. I'm not part of this committee, but I just wanted to come in on the Moor play plan for myself and Councillor Tina attended the consultation for the Moor ward, and it was really, really good and beneficial. It was great to see that they had highlighted areas that we had concerns about, such as Grangemore, our Grange, Clay, or Nixon's Corner, which is a rural area too. And we did put in our thoughts around that. The consultation papers that they brought to us, their thoughts was that the park and the Hazelbank area of the Foyleside DA would cover our Grange and Grangemore, and we are arguing strongly against that. The road infrastructure that is there between those two areas is certainly not acceptable. There's a high number of children and young people in our Grangemore areas that are entitled to play area in their own area without having to cross these major roads. So that has come through in our letter that we have received. Also, the lack of play out at Nixon's Corner is also a rural area. And I did mention Caution too, which is an area that is in high need. They have now, I did email them to say that that was excluded from the reply letter, and they have agreed to enter that in now too as well. But just to finish off, I know everybody's going to be precious about their own DEA areas, you know, and the need is there, the identified need is there for all these areas. But what we must do, we must consider this now. When we're bringing the writs process together and seeing what it is this council district need, that the money needs to be targeted towards that strategy, so we can at least make a start on what is needed for this council area. So I would just hope that all councillors, when we are engaging in the writs process, that we do have to make the hard decisions around the writs, that they stand up and make those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor McHugh, do you want to come in on the same issue?
Yes, Chair.
Go ahead.
Councillor McHugh. Just want to make a few brief points. It seems a lifetime ago now when myself, I think it was Councillor Kerrigan first, met with Helen at the start of the feeding consultation process into this. So I welcome the report as it is at the minute, and look forward to the final one coming forward. But like Councillor Hussey, it made for stark reading when I seen in my own particular ward all of them in either the medium or low bracket of play facilities, and it's something that needs addressed going forward now, sooner rather than later. And as Karen says, this is going to come down to identifying the resources and the funds to deliver. But I do hope that when we do identify those resources, that the areas identified within the report with the lowest scores are prioritised. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And I don't see I have any other speakers on this. Patricia, do you want to just clarify there?
Sorry, I just put it on the chat there, Chair. I meant to say Glenowen, not Coshuan. So if that could be just amended in the minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. I think Councillor McCann had indicated to come in as well.
Yep, I think he's looking to get in maybe on item 15, but I was going to clarify. Councillor McCann, do you want to come in on this issue or item 15? Councillor McCann?
Item 15.
I thought that. Yep. No, let's finish item 17. And I just want to put on record, Karen, as well, to say thanks to Colin and Helen and the play team, Playboard NI. They have given us plenty of food for thought. And as you hear by a number of councillors there, especially in rural areas, and I'll harp on about the sparings, we have quite a number there regarding the Derry. And it's an issue maybe that not maybe, but it needs to be addressed and looked at. And I do take your point, Karen. There are some of these processes very, very long. I know some of the play parks that I have worked on took 5-6 years to get from start to finish. But I do believe that we could make some, if there was funding there and some help from council, we could make some good quick ones in some areas, and especially those areas where there are gaps completely. And maybe you might have a club or football club or cricket club maybe able to buy in and maybe lease a bit of their property. So I do believe it merits some thinking going forward to it. And I know nearly everybody around that has spoke here have said they will be raising the issue at around the rates this year. So you're happy to note all that, Karen?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, happy to note all that. Thank you.
Councillor McCann, item 15.
Item 15, 2 points to raise.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh yeah, 2 points to raise about my boy. Sort of, I make them together. And one quite simply is this: there's a reference sort of on page 133, is it? Annex A here to the establishment, which we've voted on before or decided on before, of the Mobile Public Engagement Steering Group. Now, if you, I find it very confusing. I also it's suggested here that DERA will invite the following representatives onto the steering group: councillors from the relevant areas, NI Water, DFI Roads, DFI Planning, other relevant statutory bodies, relevant DSD or council officers, other relevant experts, and there will also be, sort of quite separately, local residents, wider public environment stakeholder group, one community stakeholder group, one farming stakeholder group, one business stakeholder group, fishing stakeholder group, youth stakeholder group, recreation / sports stakeholder group. Now, I have to say, sort of as somebody who's been involved in the mobile issue for years, I'm confused by this, how this lineup was agreed. It also occurs to me, and it's hinted at in the documentation here, that we're looking at a stakeholder group of such a size and coming from a range of institutions and interest groups that, as I can see, this could be up to 25 people. you know, sort of, and it'd be bigger than this committee. You know, and what I'm saying is I think we should go back to the drawing board on that. and not knocking the work that anybody has done on it, but perhaps we should have informal talks, discussions with the existing stakeholder groups and the gathering and others, the foil anglers, the Enoch Youth Forum, all the others. We should perhaps, with council officers, take another look at this and see if we can't come up with something which is tighter and which would expedite, which make us more efficient. I can see this one being bogged down sort of in disputes and half disputes and misunderstandings and jealousies and all the rest of it. That's one thing I wanted to bring up. The second thing about Maboy that I wanted to bring up is that we remember in the long history sort of this Maboy issue that in 2014 the Stormont Assembly unanimously passed a resolution saying that there should be a public inquiry into Maboy and waste disposal generally in the north. Now that has never happened. It was 7 years now. It has never happened from February 14 to now. And there it calls into question the effectiveness of our institutions, does it not? And if it can, the Assembly agree unanimously that something is to be done, then it's simply not done at all. Now, when you talk to members of I had long talks, two long talks with Mark H. Sturcombe. Now, Mark was the relevant minister back in 2014. And he tells me, he says, look, I brought it to the executive, but there were no takers. The executive never took it up, or they long-fingered it and never came back to it, and so forth. So it's not the fault of any one department. And I don't think realistically that any one department, including the Department of Infrastructure, which has ownership, so to speak, of this issue at the moment, I don't think that's going to cut it. And I think sort of that the Minister for Infrastructure will come forward to the Assembly and say, here, I've got a plan for to fulfill the resolution of 2014. I'm not sure that on our own to get that through. What I'm suggesting is this, that the Maboy issue doesn't only come within the remit of the Department of Infrastructure. It quite clearly sort of affects health, for example. It affects agriculture, for example. It affects all these things. It is a cross-cutting issue. And if it were seen and accepted as a cross-cutting issue, then the executive as a whole would have to take on the burden sort of setting up a public inquiry, not simply to leave it to a single department. So what I'm suggesting is this, that the council should write to the executive saying that the illegal dump, in our view, the illegal dump at Maboy Road cannot be confined within the remit of any one department, and therefore we call for matters relating to the dump to be referred for decision to the executive as a whole. That's my suggestion. And I think that would be a starting point to, at long last, having the inquiry into Maboy and other dumps in the north that we decided to have, that the Assembly decided to have all those years ago. And let me final sentence say this here, that the whole issue of Maboy and what it highlights doesn't simply have to do with Maboy only. The whole question, sort of waste and waste disposal, sort of, and all the rest of it, is one that's increasingly important and which goes to the heart. We were talking a few minutes ago about the environment and about tree planting and all the rest of it. Well, you know, when you consider Maboy and begin to talk about it and argue it through, you come upon that territory too. So that's my suggestion, that we go back to the drawing board. Just a suggestion, that the council officers go back to the drawing board in relation to the stakeholders group, which is going to be established. And secondly, I'm proposing that the council write to the executive saying that this is a cross-cutting issue and we want the executive as a whole to take it on board.
Okay, Councillor McCann.
Chair, could I perhaps come in just on a point of clarification before you bring in the other members? And I think just in terms of Councillor McCann's suggestion in terms of writing to the executive members, you probably will recall that actually was raised at the committee in October following the meeting that members had with the Minister. And members, a letter has gone to the First and Deputy First Minister, copied to all the other ministers, making that exact point that the members did. We have yet to receive a response to that. I'm not actually sure when it went out. It may not have gone out until November. So I will follow that up on members' behalf if you're happy with that. And in terms of the steering group members, just for a point of clarification, it's DERA and their agents, SIB, who are organising this stakeholder group. It's not council officers, so it's not within the gift of council officers to dictate to DERA who the stakeholder group is. But certainly we were more than happy to make the DERA officers and indeed the SIB aware of members' views in relation to that there is concern around the makeup of the proposed stakeholder group, and that there is a request from members that they go back to the drawing boards in terms of that. More than happy to do that if that's what the committee want us to do.
Okay, can I just chip in? Sorry, I mean, I'm happy with that. Can I just say that, of course, you're right, that it isn't up to the council. Simply, and that I think was inherent in my previous remarks about the wide remit of this. But I do think, although the council can't take a decision, as you say, Karen, it can make its views known. It can make the views of members known, and I would think and hope that, given sort of that this issue is epicentered in our council area, if I can put it like that, I think that the words of councillors and councillors as a whole should and ought to carry considerable weight. And I do believe very strongly that this outline of the stakeholders group proposal is imperfect, to put it mildly, and that could be conveyed to DERA. And I think they might be receptive to this, but it should, I believe, be said to them very strongly.
Thank you.
Is that a proposal you're making, Councillor McCann? Because before I move on, I need a seconder for it. What is your proposal again? Just give me the proposal.
My proposal would be sort of that the council write to DERA would be to tell them that we are unhappy with the a proposed makeup of the Maboy stakeholders group, and would ask for further consultation. I would ask that the council be consulted before this goes forward any further. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you have a seconder for that?
I'm happy to say
that, Chair.
That's okay. Councillor Durkin, you wanted to come in on this issue as well?
Yes, well, Karen's actually addressed both the proposals there by Eamon, and yeah.
You're happy enough?
Right. Yeah, in November I did raise the issue about the cross-cutting. Not only the cross-cutting, it's of such gravity of importance, and I've also said in the past and made the point, this doesn't need only executive attention, it needs North-South Ministerial Council attention, because there's cross-border issues and transboundary issues too, in terms of illegal waste on an island-wide basis. So, but I'm happy that Karen will be able to update us, but at least I know that the correspondence did go to the Executive Office and to all the ministers, so thank you.
Thank you for seconding that. Councillor Fleming, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just in terms of the report today, obviously thank officers for the report. And I wouldn't mind making a few observations in terms of, I know Eamon has got a proposal. Obviously, again, they restate both council's position and our own position is that there should be a public inquiry around Maboy, and obviously the ongoing work then around the whole issue of these waste sites across the north should also be taken into account. But in terms of Maboy, there should be a public inquiry. Also welcome in terms of the update and the movement in terms of moving towards remediation, because as well as public inquiry, which obviously would hopefully bring lessons to all the situations as we move forward, there also is a degree of accountability that needs brought in as well. And in terms of the proposal and the makeup of the group, in one sense, and I'm not asking him to reconfigure his proposal, but he sort of talked about it as making our views known in terms of makeup of the group, and then it turned into a proposal that we're not happy. And I know you might say that's playing with words, but because I make this point, the balance of it is in terms of trying to get a group that is representative, and as Eamon says, who's been involved in this for a long time, there is a number of bodies within the community, not just the community, but also all our organisations who have an interest in this. So I just be a wee bit careful that we don't cut off our nose to spite our fists in terms of groups coming to us and saying we're not on here represented. I take the point that it is a fairly large number of people to be on a group, but it's that balance of not excluding anybody from the group. So we would support obviously the proposal, but in that light, you try and strike a balance in terms of those who have an interest and have a stake in this, as well as obviously the number of people who come to it from a professional point of view as well.
Thank you, Councillor Fleming. Alderman Hussey.
Thank you very much, Chair. Obviously, it's a very extremely serious issue, and I will hold my hands up and say, look, I'm not over the detail, etc. But there's one thing I'm looking at in the letter, the points coming through from NIEA. They're saying with regard to a criminal trial, no new date set for a trial. Where's the hold-up on that? Is it within the prosecution or the defence that the hold-up is, or is it the court system?
Could I come in there and just say, at the minute, I know that trial had been scheduled for September, but at the minute there's a real pressure, and there was delay in that already, but there's pressure on all the criminal trial system, Derek, because of the limited number of courts that can facilitate social distance jury trials. And of course, that's been looked at again in the current context. So for that reason, a lot of these trials have been adjourned with dates to be fixed, just because of the current position. The Department of Justice and Court Service are not in a position to give dates as truth. So that's the difficulty we're facing.
Through you, Chair, I appreciate that, Councillor Durgan. Thanks, Mary.
No, thank you, Mary, for coming in. That's what I was going to come in with as well. In light of the recent pandemic, a lot of court cases and that sort of stuff has been put on hold, and we understand that. Alderman McCready, do you want to come in?
Yes, briefly, Chair. Just any proposals, please put them in the chat box as per our kind of SOI, so we have absolute clarity and no ambiguity, please. Addressing the points from the member and everyone else, clearly an issue, as we always say, it's such a huge issue that went on for years, and the magnitude reflects that. And in one way, I don't understand Eamon's point on you reduce the stakeholder engagement. You know, I vividly remember pretty much the entire committee in the chamber at one point unanimous to kind of press for that outreach, to be part of, you know, ongoing remediation with the department and be a key stakeholder. I don't know how we would, if we turn around and ask the department, say, look, we're not happy with your attendees list for stakeholder engagement, then what's the criteria going to be of who can, who can't have a say on something of this scale? Now, I take the point that it would be difficult to manage, but I think that's a management problem, you know, communication problem, which I certainly believe a department of that scale ought to be able to handle in such a similar vein that we can do it in this council with 50 members, 50 or 40 members and 10 or so officers on the call securely. So I probably agree in part with Councillor Fleming about, you know, let's not have mixed signals. And let's not forget, members, you know, we had the department in front of us in the chamber and we grilled them pretty tough in a way. But as a result of that as well, we did, I say we, I probably blame the department rather than us, but we did accept the deputation from them. And it was blown up in the newspapers the morning after that we jeopardised, you know, the integrity of a criminal trial, and linked directly with, you know, Councillor Hussey's points. You know, we have to be very careful with how we communicate, and if we don't jeopardise anything else and look at that second and third order impacts of our correspondence with the department, you know, during the criminal side. There's a lot there that I mentioned. I think it's just one for us to think deeper about, and let's be clear on what we're asking for from the department. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Alderman McCready, for that there, and I do agree with your, we do not want to get involved in issues around the legal case of this case and jeopardise the the legality of it all. But Councillor McCann, have you heard all those comments?
I have indeed. I have indeed. Yeah.
And you're happy enough?
I'm happy enough, and can I say sort of that in relation to, if I just could explain, I wasn't being pernickety, if that's a proper word, about the makeup of the stakeholders group. It's just when I read over it, I foresee looking at the organisations, if and I'm sure they would be, that if DERA, whoever's handling this at DERA, sort of was willing to sit down and talk about it, and I think they would be. I think I'd be happy about that. And too, there are organisations not mentioned in that list, and I know sort of that there would be a discontent, to put it mildly. I want to say, why are we excluded when so and so is included? Now, I think there might be ways around that. There are people with dual membership of some of these organisations. Do we need everybody in separate? I'm trying to avoid problems down the line. And I think if we solve that now, and I'm quite happy, indeed, now that we've aired all this, I'd be quite happy to withdraw my formal proposal and say sort of that now, I think that there is a fair degree of unanimity or of consensus about both of the aspects that I have brought forward here, and I'd be happy just to leave it at that at the moment. Precisely, and incidentally, very last thing, there's nothing we can do about the court case. There hasn't been a date set for it yet, and it's not even clear when a date for it will be set. Now, that's the law, sort of, and it's an awkward thing, and the law is an ass ahead, and it is in this case, but there's really nothing we can do about it. So we have to work around it, or work in preparation for the day when we can weigh in on the whole issue. But look, I'm happy for the moment to leave it at that, if members are happy as well.
Thank you very much for that, Eamon. Seeing you proposed it and you've withdrawn that, we will take that on board and late. And I'm sure when you listen to other people around I was going to say round the room, but round the iPad, I was going to say that there are a lot of people agree with you on some issues, but we'll leave it at that. Sure, you happy enough?
I'm happy enough.
That's okay.
And Chair, just before we finish, just to let members know, look, if members have more detailed comments to make to DERA or to the SIB officer who's working on this project, then we will circulate contact details to members so that they can contact the officers directly and make them aware of any concerns that people have raised with members as well, if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Karen, for that. Do we have a proposer? That's the end of that business. Do we have a proposer that we move into confidential?
Proposed that, Chair, Paul Fleming.
Paul Fleming, do we have a seconder?
Sean Kerr.
Sean Kerr, seconded. Thank you. Just give us a wee thumbs up, Karen, when we're offline.
Thank you. We'll just wait for IT to